I'm going to count on that being the case because most of you did well on this test. I've looked at some of you anyway. And then we have a straight angle, which is basically a straight line, and it's 180 degrees. So these are not unusual angles. They are angles that you probably have already heard about. And they're going to be important when we go to triangles. But if you wanted to think about a square has 4 right angles, and that is a connection of line segments. So a square has 4 sides that are the same and 4 angles. And so this is the little symbol for angle. It looks kind of like a slanty L. It looks kind of like an acute angle. And we're going to measure angles, and I'm going to go back to my whiteboard. Give me a minute. And it's going to stop the other. So if I were to draw an angle like this, we have an acute angle. If I were to draw an angle like this, we have an obtuse. I can very obviously look at this and say that this angle is less than 90. This is greater
Anybody else? What do you think?
here. It's greater than 90, but it's less than 180. So I've got my 90 on the wrong side. That's what I can't write this and think. I can't do it and talk. I'm sorry.
So I'll let you do the last one. Miss Greenberg.
Let me just clear that. So we have small angles, we have large angles, we have corner angles, and we have straight angles. And these are pretty easy to see. I do want to share something different with you today than I did with my class yesterday. I hope that it works. I'm going to stop this share, then I have to go back to my other share. And this is where, quite frankly, your younger teachers are better at this than I am, and almost everybody's younger than me. So that means your teachers are better. These are special angles. These are adjacent angles. And adjacent angles are angles that share a common vertex and a common side. And if you want to think about, they live next to each other, they're neighborly, so they share a common vertex. In this case, the vertex is A, and there's a point there, that's the vertex. In this case, it's A, and they share the side AC. So they share a common vertex and they share a common side. And this is a way to say that A to C point. Okay. If I was going to name this angle,
Hey, you got him.
Let me change my color. I have one angle here, which is angle BAC. I can also say that it's angle CAB, but the vertex is always in the middle. Then I have another angle, and it's this angle, which is angle CAD or DAC.
I'll come back in 2 minutes. But do it on a piece of paper, put your name on it so I can have you.
And so I could call it angle CAB or BAC. I could call it CAD or DAC. They share this line and they share this vertex. The angles A plus B,
The approach that I explained before. You take the longer side.
this is C. And I kind of, when I drew all over it, kind of messed that up. So let me kind of erase some of this. But you see that if I add A and B, they equal C. Everybody with me so far? So these are adjacent angles. And you can just think adjacent, the word means next to each other. So that works fairly well. And there's a lot of, what do I want to say? There's just a lot of language in talking about geometry, and there's a lot of manipulation of talking about geometry. Then I have vertical angles, and they're formed when you make an X. So anytime I make an X, I have two pairs of angles that are the same. Here, angle A is equal to angle B. If I wanted to, I could call this, and I'm drawing it so that you can see that these two are the same. And I'm going to call this little c and little d. And they would also be the same. If we understand angles and the relationships between angles, then we can perform all kinds of manipulation that we want to do to help us understand the world around us. So it's kind of a long, what we're saying, but it is in fact working for us. And I should have told you to be taking notes, but anytime I'm writing, I'm assuming that you're writing. Angles at a point aren't super important for you to know. Angles on a line are not super important. But I do want you to know, because in 8th grade you need to know about linear pairs. And this is angles on a line, or linear pairs is how they're normally called. A line is a straight angle. So if I have two angles on the same line, the sum of those angles will be 180. And if you have 3 or more rays to make 3 or more angles, you'll see that you actually have a whole circle, and circles add up to 360. And if you think about, and we're going to look at a protractor in a minute, if I was a good drawer, I'd tell you that a protractor is a semicircle or a half circle. And they do have circular ones as well, but the kind we're going to be using is the other kind. I'm going to give you just a little bit more. But you should have acute, obtuse, right, and straight angles. Then we're going to have adjacent angles, which is two angles that share a common vertex and side. We're going to have vertical angles, which are formed whenever you cross two lines, make an X. You always have vertical angles. Vertical angles are equal. We'll have linear pairs, which they're on a line, so the sum of their measure is also going to be 180. And if we looked at the sum of three angles that started at a common vertex or point, we would see that their angles would sum to 360. You don't really need to know that one, so I'm not going to write anything on it. Everybody good so far? Give me a thumbs up if you're kind of understanding what we're talking about. And some of it, you just have to use it a while. Okay, so at least some of you are getting what we're doing. I like this a whole lot more, to be real honest, if you were here and we were measuring and we were doing. And I'm gonna stop, I think, after this next slide, and we're gonna do some of that. And I'm gonna do another. Let me clear everything that's here. Complementary angles. They form a corner. So when I think about which one's complementary and which one's supplementary, if I think about a corner, there are two angles that will fit in a corner. 30 and 60 add up to 90. So that's the sum of the measurements of two angles. That is 90 degrees. And 90 degrees is that corner angle or right angle. And they're called complements of each other. We also have supplementary angles. And they have a